Hello, folks. Jim Voss with Just My Opinion. Coming to you from Macon, South Carolina on a Sunday evening with Just My Opinion. Well, we're somewhere over 70 productions now. I don't know what it is, 71 or 72. Um, Joe is back on off of his bender, and Joe's not looking very well at all. Oh, wait a minute, that's Bob. Joe's up there in the corner. He's still drinking heavy. But anyhow, the whole gang's back here through the smallest studio in the world together tonight. Several things. One, we had an eclipse. Ooh, I am so impressed. I never even looked at it. I had seen one before. In fact, I'd seen two before. I'm old enough to see six or seven, but anyhow, it was amazing to me that millions, and I do mean millions, of people put their work aside and went to the windows of the office building, went to the rooftop, and even took a day off from work to drive down to the worst open part of our perimeter in the southern border because that had the perfect alignment of both planets so that you could get the most perfect aura around it. Some of them went and camped out the night before with about 800,000 other illegals. I understand there's not going to be another one for another 20 years. But when I talk about the importance of the vote that is coming up November the 5th, you won't be able to see our America for another 100 years if the Democrats stay in power. Now, I'm not saying if Joe Biden stays in power because, to be honest with you about it, Joe's cheese slipped off the cracker a long time ago. And I don't mean cracker to be racial, although that's what white folks get called. Well, we have to assume that Ramadama Obama is pulling the strings somewhere and using the little marionette puppets. And of course, some people say it's Camilla, some say it's Kamala, and it says, come on over, you know, uh, come on over, nobody's home. I went over, nobody was home. Um, I can't imagine what role she plays. They feed her lines and bits of information that she's supposed to go up against the camera with and sound like she has some kind of intelligence. But I'm sure that they keep a steady feed of numbers coming in for people who are willing to offer another new Mercedes if you do it on the layaway plan. But anyhow, so there's nobody at the helm. Nobody steering this big, beautiful ship we call America. Absolutely nobody. We are just not stagnant in the waters, but we're going with whatever the current pushes. And right now, the woke generation is pushing the current. And it's slowly but surely. You know how when you're canoeing or something, you start to get ready to go down some rapids or something like that, it gets a little bit faster and then a little bit faster, and a little bit faster. But getting back to oh my God, we had an eclipse. And I like, everything that I think about is how the woke generation has screwed us and how we've sat back scratching our ass and let them do it. If you think about it, it's just two planets. And all they did was, now you think about one of them being the woke generation. So the woke generation gets here and it barely touches it begins to start to eat away at this plant. So we go a little bit further and a little bit further, and this is what woke did. They infiltrated our schools, they infiltrated our military, they infiltrated our government, they infiltrated every known office up to and including the White House. And that's what happened. They started a coup over a year ago. I'm the only one who identified the coup a year ago. So we went until we got this. See? Now the coup is successful. So what's going to happen now? If the Democrats pull it off and steal another election, what we're going to start having is that we go back to normal, except that the woke generation remains in charge. The woke generation and the cancel culture are two of the biggest cancers that this nation has ever seen. And it has manifested itself in our liberties and in our freedoms. And we're losing them day by day. The coup that I identified over a year ago, everyone thought that was BS. Now says that we believe that we're under a coup. The coup is like the circle of need for drugs. You've got this need. They need to take that power. They need to quietly take that liberty away from us. So what do? They go out and they steal it. And then they replace that with something else that makes you think we still got the original freedoms and liberties. And we don't. Just think. Let's go 5 years ago. 5 years ago, there were no strapping young men, 6'2", on the girls' swim team, getting all the trophies because he identified as a girl. We would not have allowed him to go into the girls' locker room and shower and change clothes in the middle of all the girls on the swim team just 5 years ago. You see how the woke generation has been eating away. 5 years ago, we would not have allowed CRT, critical race theory, to be taught in our nation's schools. Today, if a child does not follow the guidance and the banner, I guess, of the woke generation, that child is identified and ostracized as in friendship and education. In 1935, Hitler did the same thing. He said, if you cannot follow the Third Reich, you will be removed, identified, pushed out of the classroom by friendship and by teaching. And yet, we've allowed critical race theory, which is one of the most racist ideas in the world, to just grow. And we can't go to the town hall meetings or meet with the Board of Education because then we are labeled as domestic terrorists. You see, they took away our input to the school board about how we want our people taught, how we want our children taught in school. 5 years ago, would you have had one of Miss Ray's transvestites reading stories to our kids and them thinking that dressing that way, even of the opposite sex, is okay? Just 5 years ago, could we have allowed a big hairy man to follow a little girl into the girl's bathroom because he identified as a girl. Just 5 years ago, did we have 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 year olds wanting to change their sex because they wanted to be somebody else? Look at the changes that have happened in not even 4 years, in basically 3.25 years. Look at the changes that have happened. If we could muster half, just 50%, if we could muster up half of the interest into the upcoming election and to the people who are running, as we did with that stupid ass Eclipse, just think of the quality of people that we would get, because we would be vetting the hell out of them. We'd know their dog's name and their cat's name by the time they got ready to go into office. But right now, the perfect candidate is with whoever is the leading party, or the party is makes everybody happy, or the party gives the most away, and they have to purport to be Christian, 2 children, preferably a boy and a girl, never been in trouble before. Um, he teaches Sunday school and she does charity work. That's right. That's right there. That is your perfect candidate. Only when you get them elected, you find out a couple of years later that he almost went to prison for embezzlement, or he's a hair sniffer with Krusty the Clown, and a pedophile who just hasn't been caught yet. I keep telling you how important November the 5th is. The danger signals are up, and the Democrats are scared. And I noticed today Biden hadn't done a damn thing in 2 weeks. But the poll 10 days ago showed Trump with like a 4 point lead. Now, here's where the media starts to blow smoke up your ass. Now, today, that same Pew uh, was released, and it shows Biden almost even with Trump except for 1%, 1 point. This is where they crank up the bullshit machine and they start to spew it all over the place. And next week they'll show Biden with a half a percentage point lead. Wait and see. It's going to happen. That's the way it's going to happen. And they're going to be touting all the things. Now it's crazy because Bidenomics has failed miserably at every price level and every income level known to man. But they're still saying that it's doing great things. Excuse me while I sip on some good old Southern iced tea. Smirnoff iced tea. Okay. No, seriously, this is iced. Maybe just a little bit of vodka. Put the eclipse aside. But I want you to, before we do, the world, not just the United States, the world virtually stopped. The highways, in the air, in the financial institutions for 6 minutes. And for 6 minutes, nothing happened. Now, for the heavy Bible thumpers that we have out there, and I'm not criticizing Christians, but it was supposed to be start of the tribulation. Well, it's very simple. It explains to you in the Bible that no man knows when the Lord will cometh again. He will come as a thief in the night, and you'll never know it hits you. I mean, that's just the way it is. So they missed out. I'm sure they're crying in their beer somewhere. Just half. Just half of that attention paid to this major election coming up. Just think of the quality candidates we could get. Okay, Robert Kennedy, who I like, I do, I like. He's a liberal as hell, but I like Kennedy because he stands up against the vaccinations, against the killer serums, is not going to do a libertarian run. I hope he runs as an independent because he'll take about 12% of Biden's vote, but he won't take any of the Republican vote. I say between 12 and 15% like Ross Perot did. We're gonna have us another trial, another sham trial. Can you believe this shit? You know, I spent 45 years in law enforcement. I spent a long time in courtrooms and talking to attorneys and finding out what was floating, what wouldn't, and what was a golden case and how you could just win it with the worst attorney in the world. But let's take the crime. The crime is the payment of hush money. Well, here's the news, folks. That is not against the law. If you know something bad about me, and I don't want you to tell the press or my wife or anybody else, and I give you $10,000 to keep your mouth shut, that is not against the law. Okay. They're saying that he gave Stormy Daniels X amount of money to keep her mouth shut. Number one, same as last time in the Bragg situation, statute of limitations ran out a long time ago if it were a crime. Two, it is not a crime to pay hush money. The defense, Donald Trump's attorneys, have already shown the letter signed by Stormy Daniels that says Donald Trump never gave me a penny of hush money. Never did, sports fans. I'm talking to you now. Listen. In order for this to have any kind of adjudication of the case, you got to have a player, a victim, and a transaction. There's none. None of the three are there. If the money never went to Stormy Daniels, then Donald Trump is not the player. If he never gave her money, there is no transaction. But the things that kills us off away already is the statute of limitations is, you know, normally on something of this minor is 1 year, maybe 3. So everything that the prosecution has is just a crock of bullshit. That's all there is to it. Now, what are they going to do now? Well, they're going to say that he used campaign finance funds to pay off Stormy Daniels. They have an affidavit from her that says Donald Trump never paid me a penny. But they're still going to hang on to this one little thing. And they're saying that Cohen, formerly mob boss attorney, that's, I don't know why Trump is with him, but anyhow, they're going to say that Donald Trump gave the money to him and then he pays Stormy Daniels, or I gotta get my numbers right here, that Cohen paid her hush money without Donald Trump ever knowing about it. Once again, there is no crime. Now, they're saying that it was done with, this is like running up a sand hill. The sand hill is here. Up here, way up here, is the idea that Trump paid for whatever, the hush money, with campaign funds. But over here, Stormy Daniels says she never got a dime. Whether it was campaign funds or money out of his piggy bank, it doesn't make any difference. Nobody had a transaction. Now, if she says that she did not receive a penny, and even if Cohen tomorrow testifies and says he paid her, then he's lying. He's already in prison doing time for being, as they said in his last trial, a compulsive liar. You got me. Whenever Bragg took the very first misdemeanor and diced it up into 34 little itty bitty misdemeanors and tried to put Trump on trial for it, I thought, holy crap, this is all they have. And it's nothing. It was like Swiss cheese being thrown out there. This is the same thing. These trials are important, but the biggest trial that you and I'm not a businessman anymore, was, we must consider that they are telling us that they can make you stop working in a state and that your business will not be recognized for trade, buying or selling any type of goods in a city or a state. Thousands of people are leaving New York as we speak simply because you cannot tell an entity that they cannot work in a state and earn money in an honest fashion. Now, if they found Trump guilty and gave Trump time or a fine, that is how they put a blister on his ass. But you cannot tell him that he cannot operate a business in a state. So the people in California, the people in New York, rich folks, are leaving. Since we almost made a Freudian slip there for California, the crazies are leaving California because Newsom is driving that state. He's way beyond bankruptcy. They got an $80 billion deficit. So he's like the federal government. I mean, I understand why he wants to run, for the federal government, because he thinks like our elected officials think. He believes that this pit of money that we call our income is just bottomless and will always be there. Last week, you want to hear how Hitler had his Gestapo and what Biden is doing? The federal budget for the IRS is $60 billion a year. $60 billion a year. Krusty the Clown asked for 80 billion more just to hire additional personnel. Now, do you remember when Biden stood in front of everybody and said, don't worry, if you don't make more than $400,000, we are not going to bother you. Well, these 80,000 new agents are not pencil pushers. They are not your secretarial staff. They are agents that are going to be out in the field trying to retrieve money that's owed to the federal government. And the first target is anyone below 200,000. And now the new guidelines are anyone making $75,000 or less. In other words, the people who pay the most in taxes, it's honest taxes, are the people that are going to be identified and investigated. These will be armed agents, 80,000 new ones. Yeah. And if you have the wrong thing down on your taxes, you just stepped in your mess kit. It's absolutely unbelievable what's happening. He's got we have the only IRS that has its own court, its own judges. No other country does that. Now we don't have a pauper's prison, but they will put your ass in jail for willful neglect of paying. But nobody else does it that way. You don't run for office. I mean, most judges run for office, not for the IRS. You're appointed. I want you to look at the three steel encrusted agencies. You've got the DOJ, corrupt as hell. You've got the FBI, the second, the largest body of law enforcement people, corrupt as hell. And now we have the IRS. So it's a double whammy one way or the other. You don't want to pay your taxes. You haven't been paying your taxes. You willfully neglected to pay your taxes. Now the FBI is involved and the DOJ is involved, and your ass is going to jail. I wonder if they'll ask Al Sharpton, how long are you going to wait before you pay us the $400,000 you owe us? Or if they're going to ask Jesse Jackson, when is the $1.2 million going to be in our hands? I wonder how many of these delinquent so-called social activists will be waited on hand and foot, but never asked the question of where's the beef. You and I owe, $1,000. They all up our ass. That's all there is to it. And we get the red-lettered ones that are the threat to take away our home, our business, our way of life. You think at one point, yeah, I just need to go out here and rob me a bank so I can get the money to pay off the IRS, so they're going to take my home, or blow my brains out, tell my family to take the money and pay the IRS and then keep the rest of what they can. It's the woke generation, folks, I'm telling you. Slowly but surely eating away at our freedoms and liberties. And if you don't get your ass off of that couch, scratching your scrotum or picking the dingleberries out of your butt, I'm telling you right now, we will not have an America after November the 5th. If the Democrats steal it, this will be the worst Christmas you'll ever celebrate. If they allow you to celebrate. I'm telling you, one of the major goals of the woke generation is to destroy religion. And I've made this prediction before, and if the Democrats win, I'm going to tell you that it's going to happen. One, either you will have guidelines to what you can preach on in church, or there will be no church, and you will have to celebrate our Lord and Savior in your home. And that noise level cannot have such a decibel count that you can hear it on the sidewalk so as not to offend anybody else with your religion. There will be no religious markers along the roadside where somebody was killed, no crosses. You will not be able to display a cross. There will be no display of Christmas except for Santa Claus. We accept Santa Claus. Nothing that pertains to religion will be able to be seen by another person. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll give that 10 more years. By 2034, just as Hitler did in 1935, 36, 37, 38, he shuttered the churches and he told the people, I am the savior of Germany. If you need somebody to worship, then you can worship me. Then he closed all the libraries and took all the books of knowledge out and piled them up, and they had these giant bonfires and burned all of the books, just like cancel culture wants to do. And then he rewrote German history so that it glorified people who thought like he did in the Third Reich. CRT was a 100% success in Germany in those same years, and those children were identified as inferior, and they were ostracized by friendship and teaching. Same thing is happening right here. There is no more respect for law enforcement. There is no more respect in our school system for the teachers, nor for the principals or anyone who's trying to run a sane and safe school for our children to learn. We do not have any say so in what our children are being taught, whether it is demonic or whether it is overtly gay. It's all being shoved down their throats. And now children, barely out of the womb, 5, 6, and 7 years old, are questioning their gender and wanting a sex change operation. And the court system's going to come down with it very, very soon. The parent is not going to have any ability to say, no, you cannot have this sex change operation until you are legally 16, 17, whatever, the age of reasoning. They're going to make you pay for it. That's 31 minutes. That's long enough. We've covered some monumental stuff. I want you to watch Monday. This is what should happen. This is what should happen in a court of law. I've been in thousands of courts of law. This is what should happen. Immediately after opening arguments, Trump's attorneys should say, Your Honor, we have an affidavit from Ms. Stormy Daniels that says she never received a penny from Mr. Trump, regardless of what Mr. Cohen says. We would like all charges dropped against Donald Trump. And that should be the end of it. 90 seconds in court, in and out. They cannot proceed because they do not have probable cause. You cannot prove criminal intent in something like this. But they're showing us that they can change the rule of law if they want you bad enough. You think about that tonight. You think about they throw the books away and they have their own game plan. And if they want you bad enough, they'll get you. Let's see what happens tomorrow. I may do another podcast tomorrow night. If I can get through it heckling and throwing up, I might. We are still going to digital radio. I can't wait. I'm shooting for the 1st of the month. But for right now, this is Jim Voss with just my opinion. High above my garage, 8 or 10 feet, in Aiken, South Carolina. Asking you to please, please, please get serious about what we're losing and help all of us that are willing to fight to do exactly that. To fight, to stand up and protect all that God has given us. Because, as it says in the Bible, if God gives you a talent, a present, a gift, and you don't use it, then He takes it back. Speaking of talent, I'm going to dedicate this podcast to an old friend that looked me up after almost 50 years. He was my roommate at Reese Air Force Base, Texas. His name is Dennis Letts, Letts. Let's go, let's stay, I don't know. But he is a mean guitar player, and he was a mean guitar player when he was roommate. Boy, he's just great. 12 strings. He's awesome. And we have become friends again. He married his college sweetheart, Miss Kathy, and this guy's too smart. I mean, he's I think a nuclear physicist, I'm not sure, but he's somewhere way up there on the food chain of where they talk, and kind of goes over my head. I'm standing at the airport. I remember when I testified for the Science Academies on the use of depleted uranium, DU rounds. And for 10 minutes, I sat on that witness stand and I never understood a word some of those people said. And, I am not educated beyond my intelligence. I'm just an average guy who has the ability to communicate from point A to point B, and that's about it. Once I run out of words, I probably know 90, 95 words, something like that. But Dennis is smart. I'm telling you, he's smart, and he's got a good-looking wife, and he's got it made. But I want to hear him play. I'd love to be able to find out how to edit and let him play on the podcast. But when I learn how to edit and do all that crap, I will. But right now, all I know how to do is just run my mouth high above the garage. I want to be your voice, and I want you to help me. If you're not gutsy enough to stand up and get out in the street and fight, I'll do it for you. I will. As soon as this busted knee gets fixed. Operation was a success. And now, next time, I'm going to tell you about the magical power. Oh, God, I almost broke it. Of this gorgeous item right here that will take away all your worries about what the Democrats can do. This is the Democrat Protection Gym. No, this is Gym. Okay, we're out of here. As Seacrest says, we're out, and sometimes we're in. Sometimes we're just on standby. I love each and every one of you. I do, especially the blonde in the third row with the arthritis. We still have a warm shower to go to and hold hands and skip down the lane and tell some war stories. Okay? I love you. That's it. We're out of here.